Hello, everybody, and welcome to Book It Vince, the Wrestling Dream Match podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Martin Bennett, and with me, as always, you're not Anthony.
Whoa! What? Are you sure though? Like, how sure are you? How well do you know Anthony? Like, am I?
I've never seen you two. No, wait, no, I have seen you two in this room at the same time. So,
all right, well, you got me.
We got a special guest host today. Anthony is busy moving to a new apartment, and so in his place, I went ahead and asked none other than special guest Jake Martin.
Jake Martin, yes, that's me. I'm super pumped. Thanks for having me. I like many people, I've had nothing to do this year except watch way too much wrestling. So
exactly,
this is great. Yeah,
and there's almost too much to watch.
There is a lot. It's all pretty like I was saying to my friend Brett the other day. Shout out to my friend Brett. No,
what up, Brett?
Hey, Brett. If it wasn't for COVID, this probably could have been one of the greatest eras of wrestling.
I would have to agree. I'd have to agree.
Unfortunate.
It's still been very good.
Oh, and yeah, for sure.
I remember watching, I think it was on Renee Paquette's podcast. I think she had Tony Khan on, and he was saying how, like, COVID actually did really well for them.
Oh, really?
Like, just
I heard that was a good interview.
Just with the fact of that, like, it then allowed, like, everybody, like, all the fans to, like, watch from home and to put on a product every single week. Just with, like, okay, now we have to focus on this. We don't have to focus on live shows and touring and stuff. We can put all our focus into making a good TV product. And so then it just allowed people just to tune in every single week. So it kind of actually worked out for them that way. But
I could see that, yeah, because they've really and they really took advantage of. I mean, WWE kind of it was interesting because it seemed like the first time where AEW was kind of leading WWE in terms of, like, you saw AEW do stuff for COVID wrestling that WWE would then follow rather than the other way around. So it was really interesting to see that happen, and that dynamic of WWE trying to do their own thing still, and then realizing their competition, AEW, is doing it better. It's like, well, we're going to take this and we're going to take this, like, in terms of the way we produce a show in COVID. So that was kind of neat to see. But
as we get into the podcast, as always, here on Book It Vince, every week we dream book a fantasy feud. And this week, Jake will be giving his fantasy feud. Quick fact, Jake, you're the only guest so far to appear multiple times on the podcast. So.
Oh, really? Excellent. Yeah. Sweet.
So we haven't had any of our other guests back yet. Hopefully we'll change that. But hopefully you
just bring me back again and again and again.
Jake.
Stack the title reigns on me. Like, get me up to Ric Flair levels, and then you can bring other people in.
Perfect. If you like what we do here at Book It Vince, please make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts on, or come watch the video version on YouTube. So today, Jake, you have a dream match for us, and what is that feud?
So originally I was like, I keep getting torn because my personal dream match that I want to see is Kota Ibushi versus Kenny Omega, but I can't pick it because it might happen now that the Forbidden Door is potentially open, and also they already fought. They fought already, so it's like I can't really. I don't want to use that. But so I was thinking, Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi are some of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Who is some of my other favorite wrestlers of all time? CM Punk, who is someone who would fit, because, like, CM Punk versus Cena was so great because it was like counterculture versus culture. It was like the mainstream face versus this, like, this Punk, right?
Right.
So I was thinking, why not take that to the next logical level and have CM Punk versus Hulk Hogan?
What in the world?
Yeah. Because I mean, like, you got say your prayers, eat your vitamins. You got, like, if we're going, like, for the Cena Punk dynamic of, like, mainstream versus counterculture, who's more mainstream in terms of wrestling than Hulk Hogan?
It's true. That's so wild. Okay,
It's,
but so
it is weird. Yeah.
I immediately then go into like, are we just magically transporting Hogan
Absolutely.
from the 80s to now where he's...
Well, I actually was thinking to make it work
Because he
better,
definitely can't wrestle now.
No, absolutely. I was thinking, though, for a twist, we'd do the opposite. And we send CM Punk back to 1993.
Wow, that'd be
during
weird.
Hogan's last year in WWF. Yes. So, like, you obviously CM Punk would be a little more like the wave of punk that CM Punk is listening to, I guess, is going back. And it would be a little more grunge, I guess, than punk. But the counterculture's still kind of there in the early 90s. There is still a bit of an anti-establishment vibe. It's just not really on television.
Okay. Now. That's so interesting. So, okay. Okay. So, you know,
I'm not sure where to put, like, I've got an idea of where it goes and where it ends, and I'll spring that on you as we go. But in terms of starting this puppy off, I don't know which Hulk Hogan we want. I don't know if we want him, like, if we want to go early enough that he's the champ and he's been the champ for a year. Do we do it when he's not the champ? Like, I don't know. There's some wiggle room there. I'm thinking definitely when he's like the face of the company in the early 90s, though.
Yeah. Oh, no. This is definitely a wild one where it's just, wow.
We need time travel for this to happen. So it's a true dream match. It's like,
I know, it's because you then start thinking like, how does CM Punk fit in the early 90s? And like, he definitely could, because it's very interesting because at the time you have larger than life characters, but they're very like theatrical and
a minotaur, an evil clown,
a hairdresser.
Yeah, a hairdresser.
But they're like theatrical and stereotypical, like cliche.
So are you thinking
today's standards? And he definitely.
Do you think we need to change
out.
the character? Do you think the character needs to change for it to work?
Not necessarily. Well, like if you look at Punk and where he probably got his inspirations from, you have people like Raven.
Raven was one I was thinking of, kind of like, because that's early enough. That,
and you have the early ECW days where it was that sort of underground and very different from like the clean, pristine sort of WWF era. So it would just be such a shock to the system of this guy showing up and like completely. Oh, it's so cool. No, I think it would probably be. I don't think it would be a title run, but I definitely think it would be like Hogan at like the height of Hulkamania, and like he's the face. He's doing movies and stuff now.
Yeah.
So
I think it could be. I think it could be either way, because I'm going to lay this on you, and this might be controversial. I don't think Punk wins.
Okay.
I don't think he would. I don't think there's any scenario I can see where Hulk Hogan puts over CM Punk in the early 90s. I don't see that possible.
No. Yeah, it's true.
Just knowing Hulk Hogan, I don't think that happens.
Right. Like, yeah, no. No, it's you have to have. Back then it was very clean cut of like, you build up a bad guy and then you have the hero Hogan knock him down.
Yeah. So totally. And I think Punk would be a good bad guy for that. He's despicable. Also, like, you could frame this counterculture stuff as totally heel, as they did with a lot of Punk's first stuff, where it's just like the audience is like, oh, these are like these new young grunge teens, like, like get Hulk Hogan to clean up town, like, kind of thing. Like, you could
definitely have really funny moments, like, and this is the other thing that always shocks me when I look back on like golden era wrestling, is like you built up stories monthly. Yeah. Like now you have to do like, I could not imagine WWE or any of the other promotions except for New Japan, they do what you used to have to do in the territory days of you have to like build stories over months because your only shows happen every month. Instead of now where it's every single week, you do a little bit here, do a little bit there. But back then it was like Hogan versus Andre. There wasn't like every week one of them comes and cuts a promo or has a match that develops a story or whatever. It was 1 month. Andre says something about Hogan, and then 3 months later they do another little bit to build the story, and then 2 months later after that they wrestle.
Yeah, because I think they set that up initially at Survivor Series, and then they had a match in January, and then it's WrestleMania. It's like that's like half a year. Like, yeah,
it's great. It's crazy.
So I feel like it would have to be something like that. Although I could see CM Punk doing well on like a Piper's Pit type segment.
That's the thing. That's how they helped. Like that was at the time where you have to promos were the art form because you would do things like Piper's Pit. You'd go on talk to like television. You would
what's the other one? What was Brother Love's? Brother Love had a talk show too.
I forget. But yeah, you have these like segments where it's just for the characters to talk and to build up the feud. And then you have these little moments throughout the year to incite people actually do it, like doing something. And then even then, like you have house shows every couple of weeks that then like, but then only the people that were there got to see that.
And sometimes they're taped out of sequence. Like I was watching, trying to remember who it was, either Rick Rude, or there was an Intercontinental Champion that lost the belt and then went and did house shows like as the champion because they didn't air the other one yet. So it was like he was coming out as champion for like a full month after he lost the belt because no one knew because there's no internet.
Oh, yeah.
They filmed it beforehand. Sense. So it's like, as far as everyone else knows, he's still the champion. So like you can't really do that kind of stuff nowadays. But yeah, CM Punk.
Well, so, Hulk Hogan. My original point was that, now I forgot my original point.
Oh, shit.
No, I remember what I was going to say, which was you could have Punk come in as this younger guy who is then there to basically kind of like he is there, yes, as the heel, but to then be kind of the fan favorite of like the alternate wrestling like fandom.
Yeah, he's like a smart favorite.
Yeah, and but then like the core fan base is like, I don't like this. Yeah, this Punk coming in here and calling out Hulk Hogan, and he could just, you know, back then it's like you play on very simple things like a great spot in this would be Punk making fun of the fact that, or just calling Hogan old and then like ripping off his bandana and showing his bald spot.
That would be great. Yeah.
But I think if anything, it's like you have like, it would be such an interesting moment of Hogan coming out, you know, real American playing, and then to interrupt him, you just have all of a sudden this like grunge, heavy metal, rock music, or whatever it is playing, which is totally different than anyone else had at the time.
Yeah.
And then comes out this pierced, tattooed, skinny, like
he'd look dangerous. He'd look so dangerous. Like he would. I think that his size, people would get over because, like, he wouldn't be the world champion.
And by skinny,
like, there's no way Vince would book that, right?
Yeah,
like
Punk is definitely not. I say skinny because you look at like golden era wrestlers.
He's 1980s skinny. Yeah, he would be scrawny in like the era of steroid mountain men for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
he's like
same as we would be like mice in that era. Like
he's like Hugh Jackman in the first X-Men movie versus Hugh Jackman in like X-Men Origins.
Still great. It's still looking great, but he's like with a bunch of superheroes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the counter, like the tattoos, the counterculture elements would make him still dangerous. It would be like, I think it would be easy to sell him as like, we don't know what he's going to do. Maybe have him to get disqualified a bunch early in his run, right? Because he's using tactics you're not supposed to use because he's like, he's a street fighter kind of, right? Like,
yeah, you would definitely have him cheat to win, which would make everybody boo him.
yeah,
But then it is a
because he
thing
doesn't care
where
about the rules. He's just a fighter.
Yeah, but then also like, and that's where he like wants to win. But then if it's clear that someone's gonna beat him, then he'll do whatever it takes to like hurt them. So then it would be things like attacking people or bringing in weapons, which at the time everybody was very like, oh, is this garbage wrestling I've heard about?
Right,
Is this like, and maybe that introduces like an ECW invasion.
Well, the thing is, I just looked at this now when you brought up ECW. ECW, I mean, it starts in 92, but it really turns into ECW, like the Extreme place in like 94. Hulk Hogan leaves in 93. So in theory, in this realm, it's possible maybe Punk loses to Hogan and then becomes one of the big stars in ECW.
Oh yeah, that'd
uses
be cool.
that clout. So I'm thinking, what is this, a straight up singles match, or is Hulk Hogan going to try and beat CM Punk in his own game and it'd be like a steel cage match or something?
I think it could. I think so. The inciting incident is that maybe Hogan lost the title. I don't want to pick a specific time. We have the magic of the Book It Vince universe where anything happens whenever you want at any point. So Hogan doesn't lost the title, and then he's going to start building towards a feud. He's coming out to like hype up the crowd, and then Punk comes out, and Punk cuts this promo on him, calling him old, calling him, corporate wasn't really I don't know if it was a word used at that time. I wasn't alive, or I was just born at that time. But
I think they did,
but
I think
like
there was an element of the corporate stooge a little bit.
Yeah, but it could be a thing of like him saying like, you're lying to all these people, you're taking, it could be this thing of like, you're taking their money, you're making them buy shit they don't need, like cereal and vitamins and all this stuff. And so
no, I think that works really well. And who was doing, because I was watching stuff from this era recently, and who I was surprised was doing something like that in that era, and I thought it was really ahead of its time. And I think, Macho Man Randy Savage, when he was forced to do commentary, he had all these bits railing on Jack Tunney, being like, these corporate suits are making me do commentary when I know I can still wrestle. I know I can still be there.
Okay.
And Punk already does Macho Man's flying elbow. So maybe Macho Man is the one to bring Punk in or something. He can't wrestle.
That'd be cool.
So he brings a guy who has like the Macho Madness flowing in him. The street fighter he found on the street, CM Punk.
That's really cool. I like that. Yeah, that's really cool.
And then you get Macho in Punk's corner, which I think is awesome.
You could have Macho essentially doing what Taz is doing right now for Brian Cage.
Yeah, totally.
Where he's on commentary, he's telling everybody how like dangerous Punk is.
Yeah. Oh man, that would really.
I think it would lead to because I actually have. You said before. I don't know if you said it during the recording so far, but you said before the recording that you had an idea that then this leads into something later. And I don't know if we're thinking the same thing. I'm thinking something to do with NWO.
Yes. That's
okay.
Yes,
Okay, we'll get there in a second.
I think we're on the same page. I was thinking there's no way. Okay.
But first, the
I was
WWF,
thinking there's no way that Punk wins this match. Yes.
Right.
In the WWF, I don't think there's any way Punk wins this match against Hulk Hogan.
This is what I think, and let me know.
But I think it's going to be a damn good match.
Oh no, yeah. Well, I'm thinking. So this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this is actually like a 2 or 3 part match. The first one is a singles match. Punk purposely loses it and just attacks Hogan.
Intentional DQ. Yeah.
Yeah. Then maybe it's a build up to, like, say that's at like a Survivor Series. Then it's a build up to Royal Rumble, and maybe there it's a cage match.
Right. Okay.
That could be the end of it, or we have the introduction, maybe it's like I always forget. I never remembered where Saturday Night Main Event ever played out.
I don't know if it was a regular show or if it was just like every now and then, or like.
Yeah, I don't remember, but maybe Punk introduces to the WWF universe the idea of a street fight. I don't know if they were happening at that point. I know there were matches like that, but like a essentially like
I wonder what the first like street fight is.
I wonder if that's something to look up. First WWF.
Because I could see an NWA or some other crazy like.
I'm just really quickly looking up.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if in NWA they did one.
I'm just getting like playlists of them. I'm not finding a thing saying this is the first one.
I got one here that says NWA Smoky Mountain. Oh no, that's well after where we are.
There definitely would have been some. In the territorial promotions, there definitely were matches like that. But on like the grand stage of WWF, I don't remember ever seeing anything like that. So, yeah. But it would be such a difference. And also it'd be such a new thing for Hogan. And maybe it's like Hogan like kind of shows off some of his mean streak, you know? Yeah. And it's like maybe this happens after the Hogan, Macho Man story. And feud. in that Hogan kind of partially looked like the bad guy because, you know, it was this whole thing of like, is he stealing Miss Elizabeth? And so it's, you can have that mean streak kind of pop out, which then can play into later when he leaves and then goes to a different company. Yeah. So but I think
I like that idea, but I'm wondering if in a street fight though, okay, are you saying singles match, cage, and then street fight's the last one?
It could be single street fight cage match. Because a cage match at like WrestleMania would be a big match. The reason I like that
for Hogan to go is you could do singles match and then the street fight, Macho Man, who's not cleared to wrestle, could interfere and cause Hogan the victory. So Punk gets one over on Hogan because of Macho Man. So the steel cage is just as much to keep Macho Man outside as it is to keep them inside.
Right. That's good.
And then you got Macho Man still there, like on the outside. Maybe he slips him a lead pipe or something, or through the chain link. And then Hogan's going to win that because it's the big match of Mania, and Hogan's going to win.
Right.
And who knows? It could be the Mania where he comes that's on the undercard, and then he comes in the main event and wins the title for no reason or something. Like, who knows what else they want to do with Hogan?
But no, I like that as like the WWF run of Hogan versus Punk. But then years later, and I think we're on the same page. Yeah, you have the introduction of the New World Order.
Yeah, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And this is a bit different. We're in WCW now. We're in the later 90s. Punk's been tearing it up in ECW, and he shows up in WCW now. And he could win this.
Cool.
He could win this. So cool. Because then you got Russo. Russo's. You got Russo's in WCW at this point. So you could go more breaking kayfabe now. You could. I could just see Punk coming out and go for it.
In that, what if Punk joins NWO?
Oh yeah, okay.
And they break kayfabe by talking about how like they were, they actually like Hogan actually admires Punk and what he's doing and how he was trying to fight the system and fight against like.
And that's so classic
the
McMahons
Hogan, and like stuff like that.
Rewriting history as well. Like that's very Hogan. Yeah. It's very like I was always on his side, you know, like. Yeah.
But then within this, eventually Punk decides to maybe then this is the switch of like then Hogan's the bad guy and Punk becomes the crowd favorite.
Yes. And then calls Hogan out.
Yeah. And so
And
then
I just
switches.
I foresee just so many good promo opportunities, but you could do a pipe bomb situation and have, because we're in WCW now, not WWF, you could do a situation where it's like, Hogan, you're such a hypocrite. You told everyone to say your prayers and eat your vitamins. Well, what was in those vitamins? I heard you went to court for those vitamins. I heard everybody in the WWF in the early 90s was on the vitamins. Like you could play up the steroid trial stuff, right?
Yeah.
And also because Punk's straight edge, right? There's a lot of where it's like, there was so much drugs and there was like, I think it could be cool, and he could get the win here. I mean, it's Hogan in WCW though, so obviously he's going to get the win by like tasing him or hitting him with a car or something, where Hogan still looks strong. I mean, it's Hogan. He's gonna come out of it still looking somehow like. That's
good. The thing we haven't done a lot on this podcast is like delved into like WCW wild booking stuff, where it's like, what's the most dramatic thing that can happen to one of these two? And I know at the time, Hogan's family wasn't really involved yet into wrestling. That was in like TNA, where like his son showed up and his daughter showed up, and they
Hogan's
became
had
like
such a long career. Jesus.
But like, imagine if it was, this would be very WCW, is like either Hogan's wife or his daughter, if she was of age, and like, well, this would make Punk look so much like a heel, actually, so maybe it's not good, but like it would be very WCW of like Punk, like them filming like a package where he like takes one of them out to like dinner or something, and it pisses Hogan off, and like, or his family.
You could do Punk converting one of them to straight edge,
yeah,
like the straight edge society kind of thing. Like he shows his son that he doesn't like the evils of alcohol or something, and it's just like pisses Hogan off because he wants. I don't know. Hogan's not really like a drinking kind of character, I guess.
Well, it just makes it so that, or even if it's just like that, he converts like one of his kids or his wife to seeing how much of an asshole Hogan
WCW is. So sure, all of them,
or just like it's really just like turning his family on Hogan, which is sort of like a heel thing to do, but you could probably play it in a way where like it's like realizing that their dad / like he's not the family man, and he's like going out every single week. He's traveling the country away from them, sort of thing. And so Punk's like, everybody worshipped you because you were the all-American, but you have forgotten about your family. All you care about is money. All you care about is winning, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think realistically, there has to be something in booking this match. Like, say we're the bookers and we're pitching this to Hogan. Yeah. What do we tell Hogan to sell him on this? How is he going to look good after this? Because that's the thing about WCW Hogan. He's got to look good, like no matter what. He's going to kick out of 3 go-to-sleeps or something stupid like that. Like, I don't know. I want Punk to win, but whatever we got to do to make Hogan agree with that, I don't know.
I mean, it could be that it's Punk has to do some impossible feat in order to beat him, where it's like it's like a wrestling match. Maybe this is at the time where, like, you know what we could do? Let's put a wrestling ring on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
And it's like, what does Punk do to beat Hogan? He goes to sleep him off of the cruise ship, and Hogan drowns.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then when he comes back, he obviously would kick Punk's ass. But like, for that moment, I mean, there's so many weird, goofy things you could do WCW late. I just think it's feasible that he could get the win back there. It's kind of like an inverse of what they did with Ultimate Warrior, where like Hogan put Warrior over, and then they brought Warrior back in WCW. But that was horrendous. They had like a haunted mirror, and like, so who knows? Maybe there's a haunted mirror in this. I don't know. There's going to be all this goofy shit. At the end of the day, it's going to be CM Punk versus Hulk Hogan, which I think in the late 90s would be wicked for ratings.
Imagine. So remember also Was it? Oh my gosh, I'm trying. No, it definitely was. Hold on a second. I gotta look up one thing really quickly. But what I will say is, I want to step back a little bit, and I want to go back to like Punk joining NWO.
Right.
What are some banger matches that could happen with that? Because you could have Punk and Hogan team up, or you could have Punk with like
Punk and Scott Hall would be a fun odd couple.
Yeah,
like the straight edge with like the party animal, kind of like, and you could see some friction starting to happen there. And I think even Punk Scott Hall would be a good breaking away match where it's just like Hogan tries to be like, no, we need to like, you know, like you need to listen to me. I'm the leader. And Punk, like, you know, I'm trying to think of who else. Jericho Punk, I guess. I mean, they wrestle years later, so that's not really. Rey Mysterio. There's a lot of people, I guess, in WCW that he does end up wrestling in real life later. I'm trying to think of someone who he never wrestled that would be in WCW around that time. That would be like really cool to see. Someone like Conan would be cool.
I'm looking up something and I'm trying to remember where the hell it is. I'm basically trying to see if at the same time as we're deciding all this, was Paul Heyman in WCW so that he could manage Punk?
No, because he's in ECW at that point, right?
At that point, yes. Yeah, no, Paul Heyman was Paul E. Dangerous.
Paul E. Dangerous, the big old cell phone. Yeah.
Yep. He was in there in 91. So
yeah, that makes sense.
It was just before
ECW starts 92, and then it turns into Extreme Championship Wrestling, which I feel like the first ECW champion was someone crazy like Jimmy Snuka, or like, which also is like a cool matchup. I mean, there's a lot of people in ECW would be cool.
Now I need to look that up.
I'm pretty sure it's like someone weird like Jimmy Snuka.
First ever ECW. The first ever ECW pay-per-view was barely legal.
Barely legal, yeah.
Yeah,
because I think
Jimmy Snuka.
Yeah, crazy, super weird.
Defeated Salvatore Bellomo in a tournament final to become the first ever ECW heavyweight champion. Although,
and I think that's back when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling.
WWE, however, does not recognize ECW Heavyweight Championship reigns from April 92 to August 94.
Well, why?
I don't know. It's WWE, man. They decide whatever they want, and they say, this is real. We'll write out people completely from history.
It drives me nuts. I mean, like, there's some stuff back in the day when it's like territorial stuff where like a champ would lose in a town just to win the title back the next night. And it would be like, the ref would be like, oh no, that didn't count. And then it's like, okay, well, as long as there's some sort of storyline reason in the moment to make it not count.
There's a lot of like random things. Like if you look up like just Wikipedia stats of like even current day wrestlers, where it's like their title runs where it says WWE does not recognize 2 days. It's like, why? What does that mean? It's like The Miz held the Intercontinental title for 165, or was it recognized by WWE 165, actual days 167. It's like, why? Why?
I think that's taping when they tape something.
I think it is, yeah.
Which is like, everyone knows it's taped, just like, I don't know. The weird ones for me are like the ones where it's like, oh, Antonio Inoki won the WWF championship, but it didn't count. Don't worry. I mean, that'd be a really cool thing I mean, it's not just WWE though, because I will say, technically speaking, Hulk Hogan is the first IWGP heavyweight champion.
I did not know that. I did not know that. That's
they
amazing.
Don't recognize that because that's an insane thing to happen. But he was the first IWGP heavyweight champion.
That's so weird.
Yeah, he was in WWF as a heel, and then when he filmed Rocky 3, Vince was super pissed that he did that without his permission. So he went to Japan and was just in Japan for 2. He was on the roster. He was the first. It's super weird. And then they like a few years later, were like, no, that wasn't the real belt. This is the real belt. So it doesn't really count. But yeah, he was.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's
Hogan's
cool,
career could have been so much cooler than it actually. I mean, like, obviously he did a lot, obviously, but the fact that he was the first IWGP Heavyweight Champion, he was in AWA, WWF, WCW, TN. Like, it's just like, but so at time after time, it's just like, but it's Hogan. You know, he did something where he looked good and didn't put anyone else over, and it's just like, you know, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. But so then I guess we should get back to.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I will add on that, though. I'm now realizing that there will be a third match where CM Punk comes back to TNA and Hulk Hogan beats him, even though he's like 70 years old or something.
Oh,
like,
Lord.
That's just like a possibility.
Man. Gross. Okay, so, but I guess to go back to like sort of then the point of which the turn is where then Punk becomes a face.
Yeah.
What is the big blow up moment where Punk turns his back on the NWO? What could that be? Because it's got to be something really dramatic. It's got to be something big. Like, it's got to be him. Maybe Hogan has a simple thing would be Hogan has a title shot. Or a defense.
Punk screws him out of it, yeah.
And Punk screws him out of it. That'd be like the easy classic sort of thing. Is there a way that we can spice it up?
I think it could be something to do with the straight edge thing. Like, all the boys are partying and CM Punk is always like kind of like shunned for not, you know, going into that. And so maybe like you could do something where like Punk costs Hulk the match and then like opens a beer and dumps it all over Hogan or something. It's just like, you're nothing. You NWO are nothing but a bunch of old, sad drunks. Like, it could be something cool like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. Because then it gets a little real, right? With Scott Hall.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have a pipe bomb moment at some point. I think the steroid thing would be a good thing in his belt.
You could have, it's this thing where it's like Hogan is defending it against someone that everyone clearly thinks he's going to beat. Right. And coming down to the ring to that match, you have the NWO. They got beer. They got cigars. And Punk's there just kind of like as the enforcer. They keep showing shots of like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash like trying to offer him something.
Yeah.
And he's like turning down, and it's just sort of like it's by this point that we know that like they keep questioning like, what, you don't smoke anything, you don't drink anything. He's like, and he kind of just gives like, he doesn't really give too much of a reason as to why he doesn't do that. And then maybe it's this big moment of like Hogan's like gearing up to win, and then and like maybe whoever he's fighting.
I'm trying to think of who we could fight. That someone, because the thing is, in this scenario, this person becomes this person becomes the world champion.
Yeah.
So it needs to be someone who's like realistic to be I'm looking at like a roster from 1998 at WCW right now. I'm trying
to think of that, and I'm trying to think of, so then whoever it is has like a group of people that come down and like not take out the rest of the NWO members, but like distracts them.
You know who's on the roster? Raven.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, why don't we could just make it Raven?
Yeah, we could just make it Raven. That'd be great. And it makes sense. It makes sense why then
the
Punk
ECW connection and also like
in a way. But so then maybe some of the ECW guys or like Ravens. Did Raven have Raven's Flock at this time?
I have no idea.
Or is that like a early 2000s WWE thing when he?
I feel like over? You know what, we could say he does. I think.
But
sure,
anyways, it's like Raven has a group of people that come out and like all the NWO and whoever else are all fighting at ringside, and it looks like Hogan's ready to like drop the leg, and he goes to run the ropes, and then Punk steps up and then smashes a beer bottle on the back of Hogan's head.
Yeah, I like that.
And then he scurries up the ramp and Raven pins him, and Raven becomes the world heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
And then everybody's like, why did Punk just turn on Hogan?
It'd be great. And also, like, that's good because it's like a stable war for NWA versus Raven's flock. And then you could build up later. Punk turns on Raven later. It's like Punk's a lone wolf. He can't be like kept in these stables, right? So then, like, it's got a future from there.
That'd be good.
I think that's it. I think that's what he cost him a world title match, and then he beats him in like kind of a blow off feud. Obviously, in a cheap way because it's Hogan, and Hogan's not going to lose clean. Maybe he hits him with a car. I don't know. Like,
you would
runs
definitely
over him with a train, ties him to a train track. I don't know. Something stupid.
You would definitely have matches between then, like Punk with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash.
Yeah, which is great.
Scott Hall would be a really interesting match just because of like at the time, like they both move pretty quickly. They're both stiff hitters. Yeah. And then him versus Kevin Nash would just be like trying to like this.
I feel like they did fight. I feel like.
Oh no, actually, they totally did. They totally did. Yeah, that was why Punk basically left WWE. Was
because the blow off to the blow up to the Summer of Punk angle was Triple H versus Kevin Nash. It ended up contorting in a weird way where it's just like how Kevin Nash is now involved and Punk kind of got like left out of the picture.
Well, it was like, okay, you're gonna face Kevin Nash. It's like, but why?
Why? Exactly.
Why am I facing? Like, I should be facing like new guys or like really popular people, not
or
old
at least
dudes.
Triple H. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
But yeah, and they just wanted to have Triple H win and all this stuff, and Punk was just getting pissed off about it, and that was basically like, I'm leaving. So, but but back then, it would be a good match because you have Big Daddy Diesel.
Yeah.
Versus
Big Daddy Cool.
At this time, like you started to have like smaller build guys show up in wrestling.
Totally.
Especially
I'm sure there's a WCW champion or two that is smaller. Although they're cruiserweight.
They had the cruiserweight title, and so there was.
I'm sure they had some small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was Guerrero, Jericho, Rey Mysterio.
Punk would have easily been a cruiserweight champ.
Oh yeah, that could be a storyline.
I would hope he'd be the world title.
That could that would be a storyline within, say, the NWO, where it's like, well, the NWO now. I know at one point NWO had X-Pac, but like
I looked it up. He's injured at this point. So if we go for this roster that I'm looking at, he's out of the picture.
But you could have Punk be in the NWO and then have that way, like the NWO is like vibing for all the titles. And
that would be awesome if he had the cruiserweight title and he screws Hogan over from getting the world title. So he's the only champ in NWO still. Like it's also kind of like a great like little fuck you.
And then Hogan can screw Punk out of losing the cruiserweight title.
And the feud will go way too long, and it will be like a bunch of. But there'll be one or two good matches.
So now what I want to do? You said TNA. How about this? What if 15 years later, Punk and Hogan show back up in WWE?
I mean, like, because Hogan comes back to WWE and we get Rock Hogan. So if Punk comes back too, there's probably someone in that. I mean, Punk mixing it up like with well, I mean, if Paul Heyman takes over SmackDown still, maybe Punk goes there and is one of the SmackDown 6.
Oh, that would be so. Which would be cool. If Punk was wrestling during that time, I 100% could see him being one of the SmackDown 6. Like,
because he'd be a little
Edge,
older.
Guerrero, oh, totally.
I think in our timeline, he would be a little on the older side.
Yeah.
But not that much older. Well, if he had a big match in 93, we're talking 10 years later, 2003. I mean, he could be like 20, 26, 36. Yeah, he could still work.
No, I could definitely see him.
Or he goes to TNA and it's garbage. Either or. See where the money goes. See who offers him more money.
TNA, oh boy. I don't even I know that it like was the start of I never really watched TNA, and I still haven't really watched too many. I've watched moments and stuff, like highlight reels.
There's some great
and things.
matches. There's some great matches.
I know. And it is the birth of, some people that are, super famous now. And you got Styles, you got Samoa Joe.
Yeah. But there's a lot of crap.
Well, yeah, because the title scene was old dudes fighting each other.
It's just like, politics get in the way. You get Hulk Hogan in the back. You get also it was started by the Jarretts, who are like the greatest carnies of all time.
Jarrett, Ric Flair. Yeah.
There's a lot of egos in there and a lot of, but man, there are some good matches and some horrendous. I think it's really good that they rebranded as Impact and removed themselves from the TNA kind of, I think that was one of the best moves they could have made.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so funny to look back and be like, wow, some weird ass stuff.
Well, that was one of my favorite lines with the AEW Impact stuff that's going on right now, where Tony Khan asked Tony Schiavone's like, you were in Impact once, right? Tony said, yeah, I went here once 18 years ago. I did one night in Impact and then quit the business for 18 years.
Yeah, that was a great one. That was a great one. So, okay. Yeah. So
CM Punk versus Hulk Hogan. There it is.
Punk showing up in the early 90s, the early 90s.
Yeah.
As this outlier punk grunge character to Hogan's clean all-American. And then that leads to WCW, them teaming up in NWO, because now Hogan's against the man and he's against the corporation and he's on his own wolf pack. But then Punk turns on him to become people's champion, essentially. Or voice of the voiceless.
Voice of the voiceless. Yeah, there you go.
And then we can ruin it all with an eventual TNA feud.
Yes. Why not, right? Why not?
That is too...
There it is.
Too funny. It's so weird. It's actually something that I love. It's just weird to think about. It's like, how do you put like someone from now back then? Because there's so many little nuances to like current day wrestlers that weren't around back then. So it's like, how would this person's character really fit back there?
There's certain people I don't think you could do it all just like. I don't think the Young Bucks could exist without the prior knowledge of everything that has led up to that point, because so much of the Young Bucks is a throwback or a homage to a certain era and style of wrestling, or the revival. The revival would fit in, but it would be different. It wouldn't be like an interesting homage to the past. They would just be in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Or then like you couldn't really have like. You couldn't have The Rock in the late 90s in like the late 80s, because it just wouldn't. Yeah. It like everything that happened to lead up to the point of like having like that superstar, but also is kind of like sarcastic and witty. Like
I think things come around again, because you could probably have Stone Cold not in late 80s WWF, but you could probably have him in late 70s, like NWA and things like that. So I don't know. I feel like things might cycle back. Like
it'd be more. He would end up being more like a biker character. I would imagine, instead of just like this badass.
I guess he was around in that era, but he was stunning Steve Austin.
Yeah, he was the ringmaster.
Yeah, and then the ringmaster. Yeah, he had a lot of gimmicks that were not as good as Stone Cold.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's there's a reason why the characters that exist today are around and make sense, is because, like you said, you have that prior knowledge of what you can relate it to and why it's like the Fiend.
The Fiend you couldn't do in any other time period. Like that would make no sense.
No, it's because of pop culture now, where we can go, oh yeah, he's like a Mr. Rogers character, and that's like Murder Clown. But like,
Although they did have Doink and like the Boogeyman and like Papa Shango was like a voodoo like.
yes.
So maybe the Fiend would actually fit in perfectly.
Well, you have Doink, who's just a clown, but it's like a murder clown. Would be crazy.
I mean, Doink's pretty dark at the early Doink, and then they just turn him into kind of a clown. But I think the first version of Doink's pretty creepy. Like, I think it's pretty like good and creepy.
Who's another? Before we get to our match recommendation and our questions, I just want to ask, who's a wrestler or a group or something that you think could definitely fit if it was like 20 years ago? The first one that comes to the first one that comes to mind is I really think that Undisputed Era would have fit in like the 90s.
I think in the late 90s they would have. I think the size is too much for a lot of bookers to get over in the early 90s. And like Adam Cole is incredible, but he's a little short for 90s standards. Right,
that's true.
Which is I mean, I don't care. Modern fans don't care. He's awesome, but like like bookers back then, I don't know. Like,
and I guess the Undisputed Era is definitely like taking inspiration from groups back then of like the Four Horsemen, NWO, like where it's like it's a group of guys who stick together no matter what, and they only care about themselves.
I think,
and they're there for each other, and they just want to win. They just want glory.
I think obviously the Revival or FTR is easy to pop back, because they're kind of a throwback. But like other than like outside of like a throwback kind of, I would say someone like Walter. I think you could put back in the day.
Well, it's like you essentially have like Regal, like it's essentially that sort of thing where it's like they would 100% go, all right, he's British, he's big, let's make him like a king. And he's like royalty or something, and he's come to wrestling because he's bored with being a prince or whatever, and he wants to fight people now.
He'd have some stupid ass gimmick for sure. Like, or also like I could see someone like anyone big like Wardlow. I think you could throw back, and he would do fine.
What about Wardlow would 100% be like oh God, why can't I remember his name? He was the police officer.
Big Boss Man.
Big Boss Man. He'd be kind of that, where he's like a bodyguard or whatever. Like they would probably throw that sort of gimmick on him. What about Jurassic Express? It's Tarzan and a dinosaur. That would fit.
Yeah, they would fit. Yeah, I think they would fit.
It would be way goofier though. It wouldn't be as nuanced as like, he's a dinosaur, whatever. It'd be like,
no, I think that would definitely fit in the early 90s. Of course, it would be
like he's a dinosaur. What?
Yeah.
But they wouldn't have him. They wouldn't have him speak. They wouldn't have him do it. They'd just have him be like menacing.
No, he wouldn't. Yeah.
And then you have Tarzan, and it's essentially just Tarzan.
He wouldn't be a man playing a dinosaur. He'd be a dinosaur. It would be an actual dinosaur. I mean,
I love he wouldn't be a man playing a dinosaur. He would just be a dinosaur.
He would just be a dinosaur, like he just is a dinosaur. Although he is kind of now. Everyone just kind of like buys into it a little bit, I guess.
Oh yeah. Well, it's suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
He has a master's degree and he's 35 million years old.
Yeah, there you go. Like, what more do you need?
Exactly. But cool. Okay, so there
it is.
There's our, I guess, alternate reality of if CM Punk were transported, like 30 years ago, into WWF and WCW to feud with Hogan. Amazing. That's so great. Let us know online how you would have booked Hogan versus Punk. What era would you like to see them? Would you like to do what we did where Punk goes backwards, or would you want to have early Hogan come to the present? Let us know online, either in the comments or on social media. This week's audience question. If you want to submit questions, you can either just on social media when we post about looking for questions or when we're recording, or you can always send us a question on our website, unknownerafilms.com/book events. This week's question is very simple, but it's just fun because we kind of did a lot of it this episode. But it's, what is your favorite wrestling terminology?
Wrestling terminology?
Yeah.
I'm a fan of this. Yeah.
I assume that anyone who is listening to this podcast is a wrestling fan and understands it, but you never know. There could be someone who's like, I don't understand what that specific thing means. And,
yeah.
But it's just, I love just.
There's so many good ones. What's yours?
I mean, I use heat in like everyday conversation. Getting heat, it's like that would generate heat. Like heat is, it's in wrestling terminology, it's getting people to be mad at you. But I love using
that heats the crowd up,
heating up the crowd. But I just love using it in just like everyday conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with the one that I also use in everyday
they're
conversation.
Gonna get a lot of heat for that.
Yeah, because I like the squared circle, but you don't really use that a whole lot. I think it's kind of like a weird, antiquated way of saying it. The one that I use frequently that generally people don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but marking out. Whenever I'm I'm marking out, I would mark out at that. Oh man, I like just the idea of being completely excited by something and forgetting all of the, but what about like, you know what I mean? You just detach yourself momentarily from any element of criticism, and you just fully embrace what's happening and be excited about it.
Yeah. And if you don't know what a mark is a wrestling fan who's just like totally into whatever is happening.
Well, originally it was like a carny term, right? Because a con man, a mark would be the person you're trying to fool. So it's like it's kind of a derisive term, but not anymore, really. I don't think.
Well, there are still people who don't like being called marks.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Because
it's more fun
because they think that
there's more fun.
But that's then to another fun term, which is where then they think that they're smarter than they are to be marks, and then people just call them smarks. Yeah, smart marks.
Which I think is worse because it's more. There's a cynicism to it that's more. I think it's much more fun to just take away the cynicism for a moment. Sure, afterwards it's like, oh yeah, you know what? I don't know. Or but to have a moment where you just forget all the negative parts and it's just so good that everything else is fine, that you're just like, yes, all right, I'm so psyched this person showed up or that this move happened.
We were talking about this before we started recording, but like Royal Rumble, Edge winning the Rumble, we marked out hard for that. Like as soon as he won, I was like, I don't care how this impacts storylines. Sure, this could have gone to someone that is maybe more deserving. Like all this stuff, I don't care.
Yeah.
Edge is one of my favorite wrestlers.
I'm
just marking out to this. No, 100%.
For me too, I appreciate what Sting has done. I'm not really a Sting fan. But when he showed up in AEW, I marked out. That was awesome. Actually, when he showed up in WWE at Survivor Series, same thing. Even though I don't really care for Sting, it was like Dolph Ziggler was about to be eliminated. He was like the last one, and Sting shows up. Like, it just, I don't know. It's Sting, right? Mm-hmm. It's Sting.
Yeah, exactly.
Exciting.
Yeah, no, it's and that'll be the thing is like, it's what I love about a lot of current day heels, where it's like, just because, and I know it's definitely going to happen once crowds can get back into watching shows, but you're going to have where people are so excited to be able to see these wrestlers, but then the wrestlers are going to have to try to make people hate them.
Yeah,
And so,
I mean,
and so
MJF will do fine.
it's
There'll be
like
a few of them that'll do.
the second that there's a live show and Jericho comes out, the entire arena is going to be singing Judas, his theme song. And then the second that it's over, he's going to have to try to make everyone in that building hate him.
But the thing is, Jericho's so good at that, and I because he's the one I bring up. There was a show in Toronto that was I think it was WWE Roadblock or something, and Jericho comes out. Classic, you know, the classic pay-per-view. But Jericho comes out, and because he's Canadian and it's Canada, people are losing it. But he's a heel, right? So he comes out and he says, it's so good to be here back in my home, Canada. Everyone's cheering. It's just like, unfortunately, it's in the worst city in the world, the ass of Canada, Toronto. Instantly. Just it's like, you know, you can just he takes the adulation and then it's just like boom. So I think a good heel. It's gonna be exciting to see which heels. MJF can do it in a second.
Oh yeah.
Like he just like
but yeah, you're gonna have all these people like come out and everyone's just going to be marking out about them. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, now we have to have a wrestling show and there's going to be people that you have to boo.
There's going to be some that are going to be like, because I noticed that Pac, when they brought him back, I think people are so excited to see him back that they kind of had to turn him face for a little bit because no one's going to boo him because people are pumped to see him. Yeah. So I think there'll be a little cooling period for a few people. I noticed Daniel Bryan, when he came back, he had to come back as a face. Because there's no way anyone was going to boo him at the start, right?
No, exactly. And then, no, you have you have to introduce the only way to bring someone back and have people hate them immediately is basically what you do with Roman. That was great. He comes back,
which was a weird inversion of everything because we want to cheer him we want him to be a bad guy. So when he was a bad guy, it was actually great.
We mentioned this.
Finally did that.
We mentioned this on one of our last episodes. I think it was the Brody Lee tribute episode. But me and Anthony talked about how you can't boo for Dark Order anymore. They're in a weird spot for that. You can't, and I'm super interested to see what they do with them. But there we go. Let us know online or in the comments what your favorite wrestling terminology is. And to close off the episode, Jake, hit me with a match recommendation that you want to have everybody go and check out.
Sure. Yeah. So I've got there's a few, there's two, but I can't remember which one I said last time I was on. So I'm going to go with the third one that I know I definitely didn't say. And that is Phoenix versus Mil Muertes, Grave Consequences, Lucha Underground Season 1. So it's Phoenix, the man of 1,000 lives, versus Mil Muertes, the man of 1,000 deaths, in a casket match. And not only is it easily the best casket match I've ever seen, it is, I think, legitimately a 5-star, all-time great match. I don't know how they can do a casket match better than this. The casket is such an integral part of the match from the moment they step in. I think it's if you haven't seen any Lucha Underground, I think that's the match to watch. If you're gonna, maybe a Pentagon Junior match, but Mil Muertes versus Phoenix, Grave Consequences. It's incredible.
I'm 100% gonna need to watch that because I've barely seen any Lucha Underground stuff, but that just sounds super cool. That sounds great. So good.
It's so big in terms of life versus death.
Yeah.
And Mil Muertes is someone who I think he's in Major League Wrestling now, but it's such a great character. It's like an undead, supernatural, badass, mass wrestler. Great.
I can't even imagine what I'm just gonna have to watch it because just thinking of Rey Fenix and having to try to ground someone like him to put him in a casket, I have no clue how you can do that. And all I can think about is there's got to be some crazy spots of flipping and trying to go into the casket. Oh my God.
The casket is a very integral. I've never seen it's how stipulation matches should be booked. The whole match is the casket's so integral to the match. It's great. Mm-hmm. I haven't actually watched any of Lucha Underground past season 1 because season 1 is so long. And I keep meaning to go, but I don't know if anything, maybe there is a match later on that tops that casket match. I don't know, but it's pretty damn good.
Perfect. I'm going to definitely go watch that. And you should.
I'm glad.
Too. You
Yes.
should too. We tweet out our match recommendations on our social media, and then we also post match recommendations for every week on our website, so you can go there to find a link to go watch them. But yeah, thank you so much, Jake, for coming on and helping fill the void that is Anthony not being here.
Hey, his spirit ran through my body. It was like he was here the whole time. It's like, you know, there's a little Anthony in all of us, is what I'm trying to say. You know.
But thank you so much, Jake, for coming on. Where can people find you? And if you want to promote anything, please feel free.
I don't have anything to promote at all. So, you know, that's tis the era. But you can find me on Twitter at Bearded Jake. I have other ones, but I don't really use the Instagram or Facebook much anymore. So Twitter at Bearded Jake is where to find me.
There you go. If you want to follow anything else that we do here at Unknown Error, you can follow us online at UE_films. Quick shout out. We stream now every Saturday. And I've been streaming opening Pokemon cards because I've gotten back into that addiction, and it's a lot of fun. So come and watch us on Twitch, twitch.tv/unknownerrorfilms. As always, you can follow me online at Barton_Minute, and you can follow the podcast on Twitter at BookItVincePod. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Thank you again to Jake for coming on as a special guest. Be safe out there. Go watch some wrestling, and we'll see you next time.